What's your greatest most satisfying I fucking called it moment? Told my GF at the time that her best guy friend is into her. She kept saying she only saw him as her gay best friend and he only sees her as a sister. Well, she ended up cheating on me with him and they started dating after I broke up with her. I like to think I won that argument. Boyfriend's best friend, let's call him John, started asking me for favors and texting me at odd hours of the night. Felt uneasy about John's actions and informed my boyfriend every time I was contacted as soon as it happened. I explained to boyfriend that John was acting suspiciously and making me uncomfortable, but I couldn't pinpoint why. Cut to a month or so later, John claims I cheated on my boyfriend with John. I fucking knew it. Disclaimer, I didn't do shit with John. Edit, a lot of people have asked the same question so I figured I'd answer here. John has been demoted from best friend to no longer acknowledged person on earth. I don't know why John did what he did and I likely will never know. However, his actions were a reflection of who he is as a person and have very little to do with me. Boyfriend and I are still going strong. It's an honor and privilege to spend my days with my boyfriend. I hit the jackpot by getting to be in a relationship with him and I wouldn't risk it for anything. My wife and I went to Red Lobster one day. My wife likes the shrimp and lobster pasta with Parmesan cheese. They sat her plate down, she got a weird look on her face. She told me it smelled weird, it smelled normal to me. I straight up asked her if she could be pregnant. Her eyes got wide as she starts doing some math in her head. We went afterwards and got a pregnancy test. Sure enough, she didn't even know yet. All because I remember some random tidbit about some food smelling off to pregnant women. When I was in 6th grade, I became friends with a couple other girls in my neighborhood. We each had completely different backgrounds, but we just clicked. For years, we three did all the things good friends do. The only thing I personally didn't like was to stay over at the house of one of these girls, I'll call her Brianna. I'd sleep over at the other girl's house, they could sleep at mine, but I always came up with an excuse not to stay at Brianna's. She started to get her feelings hurt but I ignored it. Then when we were all about 16, somebody got a hold of liquor, and we all sat around drinking. Being drunk, we got into a little debate about who is better friends with who, and I was somehow accused of not liking Brianna as much as the other friend because I wouldn't spend much time at her house. Since I had zero filter at that moment, I blurted out, "Brianna, it isn't you. It's your dad. He's a child molester, I can tell just by looking at him." As soon as I said it, everything changed. I apologized, that didn't work of course. Both of my best girlfriends dumped me that day. I still had a solid best friend, but I had to get myself a new group for sure. Also, they started bullying me a bit, but I just took it because of the horrible thing I said about Brianna's dad. I felt super guilty. 3 years later, I was out of high school, living with my best friend who was still friends with Brianna. I got home from class and there was Brianna sitting on the living room couch. It was so uncomfortable. I decided to try to apologize again. "Hey, I know you are probably sick of hearing this, but I am so very sorry for what I said about your dad, Brianna. Please forgive me, I still don't know why I'd say such a thing." She sort of chuckled and said, "It's no big deal, he molested all of us." I never questioned my intuition again, because I fucking called it the second I saw that perv. Edit, thanks for the gold by us. I believe she meant all of the daughters in the family, there were 3. I don't know if any of my former friends were molested. Last I heard, I was still a shit talker about her dad and I wasn't going to correct them and humiliate her again. I figure she can tell who she wants. No, I'm not proud that I called her dad a child molester. It all came out because her younger sister said something to a church minister, but he was never brought into the criminal justice system and Brianna moved out of state. She and I remained friendly and kept in touch for several years but lost contact. I still do feel really bad about saying that about her dad to her, it was a shitty thing to say. I could have kept it to myself and just stayed away from their house, but drunk me doesn't do that, I guess. I'm surprised at all the people who are responding that they have a similar story. I'd like to read them. When my brother and sister-in-law planned a trip home for Easter weekend, I told my wife and parents that they were coming to announce their pregnancy. Everyone told me I was crazy and they'd just use the family chat for that. Cue Easter lunch on Saturday and my sil refuses a glass of wine and everyone guesses she's pregnant. Called it. My cousin swears it's my fault she has 5 kids. Every time she's been pregnant I called it before she knew, she says me saying it is what makes it take. I'm banned from asking her are you pregnant? In Canada we have a holiday called Family Day in February. In 2008 my wife was dealing with a sick family member out of town, and had come back for a visit. We were trying to have a child at the time. Well, with our crazy schedules we had one chance on Family Day. The moment we were done, I jumped up, gave her the double finger guns, first time in my life, and said bam. You're pregnant. Twin girls, red hair, turns out I got everything right except the hair, her Italian genes beat me in that one. I win for our entire marriage with that prediction. Edit, thanks for my first gold. I want to brag to my wife I got gold, but I did not clear posting this with her. So conflicting, gold versus living. Kept finding small cut-up straws in my grandma's bathroom. So many straws. I let my grandmother know that someone is using her bathroom to use drugs. She freaks out saying I'm accusing her of using drugs and that it's impossible. A year later my uncle divorces his wife due to her cocaine addiction. Grandma says, well Kay always stopped by in the afternoon to use the restroom and then she would clean my whole house and I just didn't think anything of it. My favorite story at Thanksgiving. In high school my best friend's little sister, 16 at the time, brought home her new 18-year-old BF from work to meet the family. I was over at the time and talked to him for a while because we were the same age. After meeting him something was off, I got the impression that 1. He was much older than claiming 2, had been in jail. I wound up saying something to my friend, who told his parents and sister. Long story short the family freaked out on me for spreading rumors that weren't true, telling me to mind my own business etc. 2 years later the sister comes home from a date with him in tears. He finally came out and admitted to her that 1. He was 30, not the now 20 he was saying 2. He had spent 2 years in prison, but refused to say for what. I was very quick to point out to the family how I called this years earlier and was basically shamed out of their house. Edit, rather than responding to everyone's comments I figured it was easier to add an edit on a few things. 1. I'm really not sure how the family didn't immediately pick up he was a lot older. I can only venture to guess and would rather not speculate. Also, this was before the time of being able to Google someone and look up their records too. I'm still close with my friend and his family. There was a point later on where I got a gee, maybe we should have listened to you. 3. I have no clue what he was in jail for, still don't know. 4. For those who called me insensitive for pointing out I was right almost immediately, I was 20 had previously taken a lot of grief for calling this out and it wasn't exactly let go quickly on their end. Caught up with a high school friend on a university campus. Pretty quiet guy, subtle good looks but never showed any interest in relationships. We were waiting for separate buses when he runs into one of his classmates, and she joins us in the bus line. We were having pretty good conversation, but I saw her eyes repeatedly flickering over to his face. Soon after, my bus pulled up, so I smiled and waved goodbye to my friend, and said to the girl, it was great meeting you. I'm sure I'll see you a lot more in the future. She looked puzzled, but smiled and waved back. They're in a common law marriage now, and getting officially married next year. And they've been valuable friends to my fiancé and I for the last 6 years. Dude at work had been complaining about his crazy girlfriend and her problems. 2 weeks later he is talking about how she is pregnant. In my head I'm thinking, she is going to lose the baby because it isn't real. Sure enough, he comes in all sad about just over 2 more weeks later saying she had a miscarriage. Some time passed and he's complaining about her crazy antics again. My husband is super medically fragile, he's had cancer twice and a bone marrow transplant in the last 9 years. A few years ago he had surgery on his wrist and I had a gut feeling he was brewing an infection despite being on antibiotics. His surgeon's office saw him and switched ABX. I contacted the cancer center because I just knew it was going to become more. They blew me off and punted back to the surgeon's office. I knew this was beyond the surgeon's scope. I pitched a tantrumy fit and pretty much told them they were going to see them and I wasn't accepting no for an answer. The triage phone nurse was condescending and telling me it was probably nothing and could wait. We got to the clinic and the nurse there started looking around the incision site. She told me that she believed my gut and pushed to admit him. The CT showed a huge infection that landed him in the hospital for a week on potent IV antibiotics with another surgery to clean out the site. Edit. Whoa, Silver? Thank you, kind stranger. Adding on, he is followed by a farmed in his BMT clinic as well as utilizes a pharmacy just for patients like him. It's not a retail pharmacy. He obviously has a lot of other issues too. And I'm just doing what a spouse is supposed to do. I'm no saint and sometimes I lose my temper at both him and the situation. If there's anything I can beg of you all, please check in on older relatives if they're hospitalized or in homes and double check that their meds are correct and their medical history is right. We're lucky enough that I'm not older or confused, and that I'm astute enough to keep up with his info. Hell, I've made a few stumbles along the way and I'm reasonably intelligent. I can see how easy it could be to mess things up if someone wasn't capable.